So now let's go back to the cookies we worked on earlier where we did the outline and the sprinkles around the edge of it. So what we're going to do, I have a bag of white icing here, and I have some hot pink icing that I had prepared earlier. So what I'm going to do, I have actually cut the opening in my bag a little bit bigger since we're flooding now and we don't need to be as precise. I can get more icing on with a bigger hole. So let's go around, outline, again up against the beaded border, and just continue filling in the cookie. So you don't have to be quite as careful around the border. That's going to fill in very well itself. And so we'll just keep going with what we call the shoulder to shoulder technique. So you want to fill your icing up against each other. If you leave a hole like that, like there, it can cause air bubbles, but you'll also need to go back and fill it in. So I've got my base coat here all nice and filled in. And what I'm gonna do now, just to make sure that all spreads out, I'm gonna pick up my cookie and just shake it and tap it a little bit. Okay, so that's very pretty on its own, but what I'm going to show you next is called a wet on wet technique. So I have wet icing, and I'm going to go back in with a different color icing, and I'm just going to add some little polka dots. So just squirt, press gently in a little circle there, and then we'll go back. You can see the wet icing on top of the additional wet icing is just settling right in. So we'll just alternate, put polka dots in different spots. You can kind of stagger them, put as few or as many as you like. And then we'll do a little edge there, there, there. And now we have a polka dot cookie. That's a very simple technique, but it's really very pretty as it dried. I remember when I first saw this, when I first started decorating, I was like, wow, how did they get the polka dots in there? How did they get it to smooth out so nicely? So see how quickly we've done one cookie, very pretty. Okay, for this next cookie, we're going to stick with the wet on wet technique. So I'm going to take my pink icing, and I have the cookie that I prepared with the sanding sugar on the edge. And so I'm going to come in, and just like we did before, I'm going to fill in this cookie. So we'll just kind of go around the edge, outline first, and then use our shoulder to shoulder technique. Again, I cut the hole a little bit bigger this time so that as I'm flooding, I don't have to use quite as much pressure, and I can get the icing onto the cookie pretty quickly. So we'll go in and we'll fill in all of our spots, any holes that we might have missed. So now we're going to pick it up, shake it, and kind of tap it and make sure all of that icing settled in. So now what I'm going to do is come back in with my white, and I'm just going to make some little spots around the edge of my cookie. Just like the polka dots we did before, going to put them around the edges of the cookie. And now I'm going to take my scribe. If you have a toothpick, that's just fine too. And we are going to draw through this little circle and make it into a heart. So what we'll do is just drag that through, making a little wreath of hearts. And then we'll come from the other direction, dragging it all through, once again making our little wreath of hearts. And if you have any spots that you want to correct a little bit, I think I'm gonna try to make that one look a little bit more like a heart. You can take your scribe or your toothpick and kind of poke at it a little bit. But there we have cookie number 2, our wreath of hearts. Very pretty. Now we're gonna set that aside to dry and grab our 3rd cookie. Okay, for this next cookie, I'm going to show you how to do marbling. Again, this is another wet on wet technique. There are so many pretty wet on wet techniques that you can do, and they're very beginner friendly. So that's really what we're gonna stick with today. So once again, I am flooding my cookie. I've chosen a white base. I'm just gonna get that all filled in and smoothed out. Poke around in there, make sure it's all settling. And then I am going to pick up my cookie, give it a nice shake and a tap, make sure all that is settling in. So now I'm going to grab my pink icing and I am going to make some stripes this way. And I'm going to spread them out a bit because we're going to come in after that and add in stripes of purple icing. So I'm just touching my bag down a little bit to get it started, picking it up and sliding it, pulling the string of icing across. All right, and now we're going to pick up our purple icing, go in. Whoops, my bag's not cut, so I'm gonna snip that real quick here. So I'm going to go in and add some lines in between here. Again, just touch down on the end and pull up and pull your string of icing across. Very easy, but it's going to have a very pretty result. Now, even just looking at this, even with the striped, is really pretty if you wanted to stop there. But what I'm going to do, once again, I'm going to grab my scribe, or you grab your toothpick if that's what you have, and we're going to do marbling. So starting here, I'm pulling my scribe through to create sort of this marbling effect. Now I'm going to wipe off the end of my scribe each time because I don't want to really muddy my design here. I'm going to go back in this way and pull it up. And then I'm going to come back down this way, kind of follow the shape of the heart and pull it down. Let's see, go here and pull it up, and then here and pull it down. Now, if you want to go in and do a little bit more, feel free. And there we have a very pretty marbled heart. Now, if you want to, you've got any spots here that you want to fix, you can take your scribe and work at them a little bit to even them out. But there we have it, our marbled heart. All right, as we